Flight 522 took off as scheduled, shortly after 9 in the morning, heading northwest towards Athens. Three minutes after takeoff. On board Helios Flight 522, the captain reported a fault to ground control at Larnaca Airport. There was a problem with the plane's cooling system. It seemed minor, and Cyprus Air Traffic Control gave Helios 522 the go-ahead to climb to its cruising altitude of 34,000 feet. This would be the last communication between Air Traffic Control and Flight 522. At her home in Cyprus, the co-pilot's mother sat down to watch television.
I usually watch my favourite show at noon on Sunday. But instead of the show, there was a news flash.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, διακόπτουμε το πρόγραμμά μας καθώς παρουσιάστηκε κάποιο πρόβλημα σε πτήση αεροσκάφους της γατρικής εταιρείας των Κυπριακών.
By now, Helios 522 was in Greek airspace. Athens air traffic controllers had been trying for over an hour to establish contact with the aircraft, but it was to no avail. Meanwhile, the silent plane circled in a holding pattern over Athens.
I was with colleagues near the Greek Pentagon when we got a call from the Ministry of Defence telling us that a Boeing plane had communication problems with Athens International Airport.
One question was uppermost in the minds of the Greek authorities. Did Athens face a terrorist attack like 9/11? Two fighter jets were scrambled to intercept what is officially known as a renegade plane. What the pilots reported back shocked the authorities. The passengers were wearing their oxygen masks. The co-pilot was slumped over the instruments, and persons unknown were seen struggling with the controls. It seemed that the plane had been hijacked. Could it be targeted on Athens? The authorities now faced a terrible dilemma. Should the F-16 shoot it down, sacrificing 121 innocent people? The pilots had only moments to decide.
The Air Force had 15 seconds to decide because the plane was flying over a populated area.
But the decision was made for them. As Flight 522 ran out of fuel, the engine stopped and the plane veered off course towards the mountains north of Athens. Modern planes fly at altitudes where the air is thin and oxygen levels too low to sustain human life. So each plane is sealed before takeoff and then pressurized during flight to create a safe artificial environment. Passengers breathe pressurized air that's the equivalent of being at 8,000 feet, even when the plane is actually flying at over 30,000 feet. If the cabin depressurizes, then oxygen masks are released immediately. Yet ultimately, control of the cabin pressure lies with the pilots. The pressure of the plane is operated by a simple switch in the cockpit. It's usually set to automatic, but it can be operated manually. It's the co-pilot's responsibility to monitor the plane's pressure throughout the flight. That's why the switch is located directly in front of him. Checking the pressurization is drummed into each pilot from the beginning of their careers, as Captain Rob Giles explains.
When you're doing a pre-flight check, typically before you push back, you would go down each panel?
Yes, the pre-flight check before engines start. It's logical.
The captain focuses on the left-hand side of the central control panel,
Checking all the switches.
while the co-pilot has to check the right-hand side, which includes the pressurization switch.
So this is checked pre-flight,
Yes.
but it's also checked shortly after takeoff.
Yes, during or after the takeoff sequence.
In fact, the pressurization switch is checked twice before takeoff, during takeoff, and again when the plane passes through 10,000 feet.
So this panel is actually checked 4 times.
Lots of checks, yes.
If the plane should lose pressure, oxygen masks are deployed. But time is critical. This emergency supply only lasts 15 minutes, which means the pilot must take immediate action.
If you get a depressurization, initiate an emergency descent down to 10,000.
So it depends on the pilots realizing that the aircraft is under pressure.
Absolutely, yeah.
With timing critical and clear emergency procedures, it seems the Helios pilots must have failed to carry out their duties. 6 minutes into the flight. With the oxygen supply dropping and confused by the effects of hypoxia, the pilots are struggling to make sense of the situation. For flight attendants Andreas and Harris, the deployment of the oxygen masks is the first dreadful sign they have that something is seriously wrong. The chief purser takes off her mask to reassure the passengers that all is well. She then tries to contact the flight deck, to no avail. "15 minutes after the deployment of the masks, the oxygen runs out and slowly everyone succumbs. At some point, Andreas must have fitted himself and Harris with portable oxygen. Andreas goes forward to investigate. He finds all the passengers and his colleagues unconscious. But they are about to be confronted by a formidable barrier. Following the terrorist attacks of September 11, all cockpits are fitted with specially reinforced doors. The only way in is by entering a security code.
I don't know whether he knew the code or not, but just imagine, in the panic and confusion, well, you can easily forget things you know.
Still in autopilot, Flight 522 is locked into a preset holding pattern over Athens. 2 F-16s have been scrambled to intercept the renegade plane. As the two fighter jets approach, Andreas and Harris finally gain access to the cockpit. How, we may never know. The two fighter pilots watch helplessly on as Andreas takes control of the stricken plane. He disengages the autopilot about 15 minutes before the crash. But then, the first engine cuts out.
He always used to say to me that planes don't fall from the sky, but when the pilots are cool-headed, nobody gets hurt. And even when it's lost its engines, it can land.
But time is running out for Helios 522. With the fuel exhausted, the second engine cuts out.
I sensed something was wrong because I tried to call Andreas on his phone. He didn't answer me. So obviously, I'm his dad. I sensed something was wrong.